My brother thought he scammed me out of the estate, but the trash he sold me just destroyed his life. My old man died on a Tuesday. Heart attack. Quick. The kind of exit he would have wanted if someone had given him a choice. No long goodbyes, no hospital beds with machines keeping him half alive while the bills piled up, just him, his workbench, and the smell of gun oil he was using to clean a carburetor. The paramedics said he was probably gone before he hit the concrete floor. I found out 3 days later. Not because I live far away. I was 20 minutes down the highway, running my own shop. No, I found out late because my stepmother Linda and my half-brother Brad decided a funeral was more of a party when you control the guest list. By the time I got the courtesy text, Dad was already in the ground and the wake was over. The message was short. Professional, almost, just told me there would be a reading of the will at the garage on Saturday at 2. I should have known right then what was coming. Saturday came in cold. November in Northern California does that sometimes. Not winter yet, but autumn giving you a preview of what's ahead. I pulled up to Dad's place in my pickup, the one with the faded paint and the check engine light that's been on since the Bush years. The first Bush, not the second one. I keep meaning to fix it. Never do. Dad's garage sat on 2 acres just outside Redding. Old building. Steel roof that sang when it rained. Big enough for 6 cars if you packed them tight. He bought it back in the 90s when land was still cheap and before every tech worker from the Bay decided they needed a cabin in the mountains. It was his kingdom. 30 years of collected projects, parts, and secrets. The driveway was full when I got there. A white Range Rover with dealer plates. Linda's car, probably a silver Tesla Model S. That would be Brad. And a Mercedes sedan I didn't recognize. Lawyer, maybe, or an appraiser. I parked on the street. The garage smelled wrong when I walked in. It should have smelled like motor oil, old leather, and the specific kind of dust that only accumulates on concrete floors where men work with their hands. Instead, there was perfume in the air. Expensive perfume. The kind that costs more per ounce than I charge per hour. It clashed with everything, like someone had sprayed air freshener in a church. Linda stood near the red car in the center of the building. She looked exactly like you would expect a woman who married a 68-year-old mechanic with assets to look. Blonde hair that moved as one piece when she turned her head. Skin pulled tight in ways that nature did not intend. Wearing white, because apparently she did not get the memo that funerals are usually black. She was on her phone, laughing at something. Brad stood next to her, in a slim-fit suit that probably cost more than my truck. 30 years old. My half-brother. Technically. Though we had about as much in common as a hammer and a smartphone, he worked in finance. Cryptocurrency, last I heard. The kind of job where you explain what you do for 15 minutes, and people still have no idea how you make money. There was a third person. Older guy, late 50s, with a briefcase and the tired eyes of someone who has seen too many families destroy themselves over money. He nodded at me when I walked in. Professional courtesy. Nothing more. Brad saw me and smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind sharks make before they bite. He did not waste time with small talk. The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. Standard stuff, he said. The estate had been settled. Everything was in order. Brad was listed as the executor, which meant he controlled everything until the assets were distributed. Linda got the house. Brad got the investment accounts. The tools, he said, looking at me over his reading glasses, were left to Jack. The tools, not the garage, not the land, not any of the cars. Just my tools. The ones I had bought myself over the years and stored here because I trusted my father more than I trusted the neighborhood where my shop was located. Brad watched my face while the lawyer talked. He was waiting for something. Anger, maybe, or tears. I gave him nothing. Just stood there with my hands in my pockets and listened. The lawyer finished reading and closed the folder. He looked uncomfortable. This was the part where someone usually started yelling. I did not yell. I just asked one question. When did Dad change the will? The lawyer glanced at Brad. Brad jumped in before he could answer. He said Dad changed it 6 months ago. Said he was of sound mind and body. Said everything was legal and notarized and airtight. 6 months ago, right after Dad started the heavy painkillers for his back. Right after he started getting confused about what day it was. Sound mind and body. Sure. But I did not say any of that. Instead, I looked past him at the car. The red car. Dad's Ferrari. Or what everyone thought was Dad's Ferrari. A 250 GTO, if you believe the badges. Long hood. Curves that made grown men cry. Painted in Rosso Corsa red, so bright it looked like it was still wet. People whisper about these cars the way they whisper about Picasso paintings or lost treasure. Only 36 were ever made. At auction, they sell for $15, $20, sometimes $30 million. Collectors wait their entire lives for a chance to own one. Brad followed my eyes and grinned wider. That is the crown jewel, he said. Had 3 appraisers look at it. Low estimate is $15 million. High side is 18. We are taking it to auction next month. He said we, but he meant him and Linda. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, that they were moving to Miami. Already had a condo picked out. Ocean view. Said California taxes were killing them. I nodded slowly, like I was processing the magnitude of my loss. Inside, I was doing math. Here is what Brad did not know. He did not know that when I was 16, I spent an entire summer in this garage watching Dad build that red car from scratch. He did not know that the frame came from a wrecked Datsun 280Z that Dad bought from a salvage yard for $800. He did not know about the molds Dad made from photos, or the body panels he hammered out by hand, or the Ferrari badges he bought off eBay for $50. Dad built that car as a joke. A beautiful, perfect, illegal joke. He did it because he was tired of trailer park millionaires calling themselves collectors. He wanted to prove that craftsmanship meant more than money. Wanted to show that a skilled man with time and patience could fool people who thought a price tag equaled authenticity. He entered it in local shows under a fake provenance. People believed it because they wanted to believe it. Collectors took photos. Forums debated its originality. Dad would come home and laugh until he cried. It was a Frankenstein. A masterpiece, but still a fake. And Brad was about to sell it for $15 million to someone who would eventually discover the truth. That was going to be a problem for Brad. A big one. But not my problem. I let my eyes wander past the fake Ferrari to the back corner of the garage. There was a pile of junk back there. Old fenders. Cracked windshields. A transmission with a hole punched through the casing. And underneath all of that, covering the tarps so dirty it looked like it had survived a wildfire, was a skeleton, a frame, a chassis, bare metal with rust eating through the edges and soot baked into every surface. To anyone else, it looked like scrap, something you would haul to the dump and get paid by the pound for. To me, it was a ghost. The summer I turned 19, Dad told me a story. We were working late, finishing up a brake job on a Chevy. He was in one of his talking moods. Those were rare. Usually, he worked in silence, let the tools do the communicating. But that night he talked. He told me about a car that crashed at Le Mans in 1963. A Ferrari 250 GTO. Chassis number 4293 GT. It went off track during practice, hit a barrier, and caught fire. The driver walked away. The car did not. Burned so hot the frame warped. The team dragged what was left off the track and declared it a total loss. Insurance paid out. The chassis disappeared. Everyone assumed it was scrapped. Melted down. Gone. Dad said everyone was wrong. He said a mechanic on the team could not stand the idea of destroying it. So he smuggled the frame out. Sold it years later to a collector in the States who did not know what to do with it. It changed hands a few times. Eventually, it ended up in a storage unit in Sacramento. Dad bought it in the 80s for $9,000. The seller thought it was a replica frame. Dad knew better. He showed me the stampings. The numbers that match Ferrari's internal records. The metallurgy that proved it was made in Medina, not some shop in Los Angeles. He told me he was going to restore it someday. Bring it back. Do it right. He never did. Life got in the way. Marriages failed. Bills piled up. The frame sat in the corner, waiting. And now Brad was going to throw it away. I walked over the pile of scrap, pulled the tarp back just enough to see the frame underneath. It looked worse than I remembered. Rusted spread. The fire damage was severe. To someone like Brad, it was worthless. I turned back to him and played my part. I kept my voice flat, defeated, said I understood, said I would clear out my tools and be gone by Monday. Then I paused, like something just occurred to me, pointed at the scrap pile. I asked if I could take that burnt frame in the corner. Brad looked at it, looked at me, frowned. Why would you want that? I shrugged, said I was thinking about making a coffee table out of it. Industrial look, trendy, maybe sell it at a flea market. Linda laughed. Actual laughter, high and sharp. She said something about men and their garbage. But Brad did not laugh. Brad's brain worked differently. He had spent years in finance learning that everything is value and nothing is free. Giving something away, even trash, felt wrong to him. It made him suspicious. He said he could not just give it to me. It was a state property. Had to go through proper channels. I waited. He thought about it. I could see the gears turning. Then his face changed. He smiled again. That shark smile. He said I could buy it. The lawyer looked uncomfortable. Started to say something about the optics of charging family members for scrap metal. Brad waved him off. Said it was fine. Precedent and all that. Everything had to be documented. How much, I asked. Brad looked at the frame. Looked at me. Did the math in his head. He wanted to insult me. Wanted to make me pay just enough that it would sting, but not so much that I would walk away. $100, he said. I reached for my wallet, pulled out 5 20s. They were crumpled, worn, the kind of bills that had been in a pocket, next to receipts and a broken lighter. I handed them to Brad. He made a show of straightening them out before folding them into his money clip. The lawyer cleared his throat, said we needed to do this properly. Pulled out a blank bill of sale form from his briefcase. Standard legal form, the kind you buy at Office Depot. He asked for details. I gave him the VIN number off the frame, told him where to find it stamped into the metal. He wrote it down without looking too closely. Described the item as salvage frame, fire damage, sold as is for $100. Brad signed as the executor. I signed as the buyer. The lawyer notarized it with a stamp that sounded too loud in the quiet garage. It was done. Brad folded his copy and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Probably forgot about it the second it left his hand. I folded mine and put it in the chest pocket of my work shirt, right over my heart. The lawyer packed up his briefcase. Linda went back to her phone. Brad walked over to the red Ferrari and ran his hand along the hood like he was petting a dog. He started talking about the auction. Said Barrett Jackson was interested, maybe R.M. Sotheby's. Said he was going to make sure it got the attention it deserved. I let him talk. Walked out into the cold without another word. Got in my truck. Started the engine. It coughed twice before catching. Check engine light glowed orange on the dash. I pulled the bill of sale out of my pocket and looked at it one more time in the fading afternoon light. $100. He sold me a $20 million car for the price of a decent dinner, and he had no idea. Through the garage window, I could see Brad on his phone, pacing, probably calling a realtor about that Miami condo. Already spending money he did not have yet. Linda stood next to the fake Ferrari, taking photos, probably for Instagram. The lawyer was gone. His job was done. I sat there for a long time, engine running, heater blowing cold air that would eventually turn warm. There's a Marcus Aurelius quote Dad had taped to his toolbox. Faded now, covered in grease stains. It said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I always thought it was just something philosophical he liked. Turns out it was an instruction manual. I folded the bill of sale, tucked it back into my pocket, and drove home. The frame would have to wait a few days. I needed to rent a trailer. Needed to figure out where I was going to work on it. My shop was too small, too public. I needed space, privacy, time, but that was fine. I had waited this long. A few more days would not matter. Brad wanted Miami. wanted yachts and nightclubs, and whatever people do when they think money makes them important. I wanted something simpler. I wanted to finish what Dad started. And I wanted to watch Brad's world collapse when he realized what he had done. Not out of anger. Not even out of revenge. Really, just because some lessons are only learned the hard way. And Brad was about to get an education. 3 weeks later, I was back, rented a flatbed trailer, and showed up early. Saturday morning, 7 a.m. The gate was unlocked. Brad and Linda were not there. Probably still in bed, dreaming about Florida real estate. I had a key, old one from years ago that Dad gave me. Never told anyone I still had it. The frame was right where I left it. Heavier than I remembered. Took me 40 minutes to dig it out from under all the junk, load it onto the trailer, and strap it down. I cleaned up after myself. Put the tarp back. Made sure nothing looked disturbed. I was gone before 8. Drove straight to a storage unit I had rented on the east side of town. 10 by 20. Climate controlled. Cost me $140 a month, which hurt, but it was necessary. I unloaded the frame, covered it with a clean tarp, locked the door, and went to work. My actual work. The shop where I made my living. Oil changes and brake jobs and timing belts. The kind of work that pays bills but does not make you rich. I had a plan, but plans take time. And I had nothing but time. A month went by. I did not hear from Brad. Did not expect to. The estate was closed. His name was on everything. I was officially out of the picture. I started researching. Spent my evenings on forums and auction archives. Found records of chassis 4293 GT. Found photos from Le Mans in 1963. Found the accident report. Found everything I needed to prove the frame was real. The problem was proof only mattered if people believed you. And people do not believe mechanics who show up with burnt frames claiming they found a lost Ferrari. They believe documentation, provenance, experts. I needed to do this right. So I started making calls. Found a metallurgist in San Jose who specialized in vintage cars. Told him I had a frame I needed authenticated. He asked questions. I gave him just enough information to make him interested without giving away the whole story. He agreed to look at it for a consultation fee, $1,500. I paid it. He came out the following week, brought equipment, took samples, ran tests. The frame had the right alloys, the right manufacturing marks. The stampings matched Ferrari's records from the period. He wrote me a report, 3 pages, signed and notarized. It cost me another $2,000, worth every penny. Then I went back to the garage. Dad's garage. Still technically Brad's property until he sold it. I still had my key. Let myself in late one night when I knew no one would be around. I was not there for frame. I was there for something else. In the back office, behind a filing cabinet that weighed 300 pounds, Dad had a safe. Old century model. Combination lock. I knew the combination because I had watched him open it 1,000 times. His birthday backwards. Subtle. Inside the safe were papers. Titles. Receipts. Records going back 40 years. And there in a manila envelope marked John Deere parts, were the original purchase documents for frame, the bill of sale from the 80s, the letter from the seller explaining what it was, photos of the stampings. Everything. I took the envelope. Left everything else. Closed the safe. Moved the filing cabinet back. Left the way I came. Now I had documentation. I had proof. I had a metallurgy report. What I did not have was money. Restoring a Ferrari frame is not cheap. Even if you do all the work yourself, parts cost a fortune. An original V12 engine from the 60s? $200,000 if you can find one. Body panels? Custom fabrication. Another $100,000. Paint? $50,000 if you want it done right. I did not have $500,000 sitting around. But then I remembered something Dad told me once. He said he had been collecting parts for 30 years. Any time a Ferrari from the 50s or 60s got part out, he would buy whatever he could afford. Carburetors, brake calipers, trim pieces, stuff that people sold cheap because they did not know what they had. He said he kept them in boxes labeled as tractor parts. Said it kept people from asking questions. I went back to the garage one more time. Found the boxes in the attic space above the office. 12 boxes, all labeled John Deere, all sealed with packing tape that had gone yellow with age. I loaded them into my truck bed and left before sunrise. Back at the storage unit, I opened the boxes. Inside was a fortune. Original Weber carburetors, factory intake manifolds, brake assemblies with Campagnolo castings, suspension components still in their original Medina factory wrapping, gauges, trim, glass, gaskets, everything I needed. Dad had been planning this restoration for decades. He just never got around to starting it. Now I would finish it for him. I quit my day job 2 months later. Could not do both. Could not work 40 hours a week changing oil and expect to restore a Ferrari in my spare time. I cashed out my retirement account, took the penalty, used the money to rent a small industrial space on the outskirts of Reading. Old warehouse, concrete floors, good lighting, space for a frame jig, and a paint booth I built myself from lumber and plastic sheeting. People thought I was crazy. My ex-wife called me irresponsible, said I was throwing my life away chasing a fantasy. She was probably right, but I did not care. This was not about money. It was about finishing something that mattered. Winter came hard that year. The warehouse did not have heat. I ran a kerosene heater that made everything smell like diesel and still barely kept the temperature above freezing. My hands cracked from the cold and the chemicals. I wore 3 layers and still shivered. I started with the frame. Sandblasted every inch of it, stripped away 60 years of rust and soot and dirt. What was left was bare metal, scarred, pitted, but honest. I welded in reinforcements where the fire had weakened the structure. Used a frame jig to make sure everything was true. Checked measurements against original Ferrari blueprints I found in an enthusiast forum. Got it within 2 millimeters. Close enough. Painted the frame in epoxy primer. 2 coats. Let it cure for a week. Then I started the real work. I did not hear from Brad, but I saw him. He was on Instagram now. Posted constantly. Photos of himself in Miami. Nightclubs. Restaurants where the appetizers cost more than I used to make in a day. He tagged Linda in most of them. She always looked the same. Blonde. Tight. Smiling. The red Ferrari sold fast. I saw the announcement on a collector car website. Private sale. Undisclosed buyer. But people talk. Word was it went for $8.5 million. Lower than Brad hoped. Higher than he deserved. He posted about it the same day. Did not say how much. Just said, big things happening. New chapter. Grateful. I stared at that post for a long time. $8.5 million. For a car built on a Datsun frame. The buyer had no idea. Probably never would. Would keep it in a climate-controlled garage somewhere. Show at Pebble Beach. Bragged to his friends. Until someone checked the VIN too closely. Until someone did an x-ray of the frame. Until the truth came out. And when it did, Brad's name would be on the paperwork. I went back to work. Spring turned to summer. The warehouse became an oven. 100-degree days with no air conditioning. I wore a respirator while I worked with body filler and paint. Sweat ran down my back. I drank a gallon of water a day and still felt dehydrated. The body took shape slowly. I used the original panels Dad had stored. Hammered out the dents. Welded in patches where rust had eaten through. It was not perfect, but it was real. Mounted the suspension. Rebuilt the brake system. Then came the problem I had been avoiding. The engine. A V12 Colombo engine from the 60s cost more than my house. The kind of money I would never have. I had been telling myself I would figure out later. Maybe find a damaged one and rebuild it. Maybe settle for a different motor entirely, which would destroy the value, but at least get the car running. I was going to the John Deere boxes one more time, taking inventory, when I found one I had missed. The biggest crate. It had been at the bottom of the stack, buried under 2 others. Heavy enough that I almost had my back out dragging it into the light. Inside, wrapped in oil-soaked canvas, was an engine block. Bare aluminum casting. Colombo V12. I could tell from the shape before I even checked the numbers. I found the serial number stamped on the mounting boss. Ran my finger over it. Cold metal. Clear numbers. It matched the chassis. Dad had not just bought the frame. He had found the engine, too. Reunited them. 30 years ago. Never told anyone. Just wrapped it up, labeled it tractor parts, and waited for the right time. The right time never came for him, but it came for me. By the time winter came again, the car was nearly done. I had spent 18 months in that warehouse. 18 months of 12-hour days and bleeding knuckles and wondering if I had lost my mind. The car sat on jack stands, covered in gray primer. It looked like a ghost, which felt appropriate. That is what it was. After all, a ghost come back to life. I was sanding body filler when my phone rang. I almost did not answer. Hands were covered in dust. I was tired. Wanted to finish the section I was working on before I lost the light. But something made me look. The screen said Brad. I stared at it, let it ring. Then it stopped. 10 seconds later. It rang again. Linda this time. Then a number I did not recognize. Then another. My phone would not stop ringing. I set down the sandpaper and wiped my hands on my pants. Whatever was happening, it was big, and I had a pretty good idea what it was. I did not answer the phone. Just stood there in the warehouse, covered in primer dust, watching the screen light up over and over. Brad, Linda, numbers I did not recognize. The kind of pattern that meant something had broken, something big. I set the phone on the workbench and went back to sanding. Whatever was happening could wait. The car could not. But the calls did not stop. They kept coming. Every few minutes. Different numbers. Same desperation. I turned the ringer off and focused on the body panel I was working on. Needed to get the surface perfectly smooth before paint. Any imperfection would show under the clear coat. An hour later, someone started pounding on the warehouse door. Not knocking, pounding, like they were trying to break it down with their fists. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. Looked through the small window. Brad stood outside. No suit this time. Jeans and a wrinkled button-down. Hair messed up. He looked like he had not slept in days. He saw me through the glass and pounded harder. I did not open the door. Just stood there, watching. He kept hitting the metal, yelling something I could not hear through the thick steel. His face was red, veins standing out on his neck. After 5 minutes, he stopped, put his hands on his knees, breathing hard, looked up at me one more time, then walked back to his Tesla and sat in the driver's seat with the door open. He did not leave, just sat there, waiting. I went back to work. He was still there when the sun went down. I could see his car through the window, could see him on his phone, pacing next to it, smoking cigarettes. Brad did not smoke. At least he did not use to. Around midnight, he finally left. I locked up and went home. Slept 4 hours. Came back before dawn. The warehouse felt different that morning. Colder, maybe. Or maybe it was just the knowledge that whatever had happened was about to land on my doorstep, whether I was ready or not. I made coffee on a hot plate in the corner. Cheap instant stuff that tasted like dirt. Stood there drinking it, looking at the car. She was beautiful, even in primer, even unfinished. The lines were perfect, classic, the kind of shape that makes you understand why people call cars feminine. Curves in all the right places. Aggressive but elegant. Dad would have been proud. The black SUVs showed up at 9. 3 of them. Suburbans with tinted windows and government plates. They parked in a line outside the warehouse like they were about to raid a drug house. Men in suits got out. Not cops. You can tell the difference. These guys moved differently. Federal agents. FBI probably. Maybe something else. One of them knocked. Professional. 3 solid wraps. I set down my coffee and opened the door. The lead agent was in his 50s. Gray hair cut short. Tired eyes had seen too much. He held up credentials. Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI Financial Crimes Division. He asked if I was Jack Morrison. I said I was. He asked if I owned a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO chassis. serial number 4293 GT. I said I did. He asked if he could come in. I stepped aside. 6 men filed into my warehouse. Rodriguez and another agent. 3 lawyers in expensive suits. And an older man carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it cost more than my truck. Rodriguez did most of the talking. He said they were investigating a case of wire fraud. Said a Ferrari 250 GTO had been sold through a private sale 6 months ago. Sold to a cryptocurrency investor in Dubai for $8.5 million. Sale was completed electronically. Money wired. Title transferred. Car shipped. I did not say anything. Just listened. Rodriguez said the buyer was a collector. Young guy. Made his money early in Bitcoin. More money than sense, he said. The kind of buyer who makes decisions fast. Sees something he wants. Pulls the trigger. Does not ask questions. The car was supposed to arrive in Dubai 3 weeks ago. But it never made it. Got stopped at U.S. Customs. Standard export inspection. They run the VIN on all high-value vehicles leaving the country. Make sure everything matches. Make sure it is not stolen. The VIN came back flagged. Rodriguez pulled out a tablet. Showed me a photo. The red Ferrari. Dad's masterpiece. Sitting in a customs warehouse under harsh fluorescent lights. Hood open. Doors open. Every panel exposed. He swiped to another photo. Close-up of a VIN plate. Then another photo. X-ray of the frame. He said the VIN on the plate belonged to chassis 4293 GT. The Le Mans car. The one that burned in 1963. But the frame underneath did not match. Wrong metal. Wrong stampings. Modern welds. It was a replica. A very good replica. Good enough to fool most people. But not good enough to fool federal customs agents with X-ray machines and Ferrari's official registry. The buyer wanted his money back. All of it. Plus damages. Plus legal fees. And the FBI wanted to know who built the fake and who knew it was fake when they sold it. I let Rodriguez finish talking. Then I walked over to the car. The old man with the briefcase followed me. Did not introduce himself. Did not need to. I knew who he was. Had seen him in magazines. Marcel Fontaine. The Ferrari expert. The guy who writes the books. The guy who authenticates cars for auction houses. He looked at my car like a priest looking at a relic. Walked around it slowly. Ran his hand along the frame. Knelt down and looked at the underside. Pulled out a flashlight and checked the stampings. No one spoke. The warehouse was silent, except for the sound of his footsteps. He found the serial number stamped into the frame rail. Used a magnifying glass to read it. Checked it against something in his briefcase. Pulled out a tool I did not recognize. Some kind of scanner. Ran it over the metal. After 10 minutes, he stood up, looked at Rodriguez, nodded. Then he looked at me. He said, "Metal remembers what people forget." Said the stampings were correct. Original, not re-stamped. Not faked. The metal composition matched. The manufacturing techniques matched. The wear patterns matched. He said, "This is not a replica. This is chassis 4293 GT. The Le Mans car. Everyone thought it was destroyed. It was not. It was here. All this time." Rodriguez asked how I got it. I pulled out my wallet. Took out the bill of sale. The one Brad made me sign. The one he notarized. The one that said I bought a pile of scrap metal for $100. Handed it to Rodriguez. He read it. Read it again. Looked at me. Looked at the document. Looked at the car. He asked if I knew what I was buying. I said I did. He asked if Brad knew what he was selling. I said that was a question for Brad. Rodriguez made a phone call. Spoke quietly. Hung up. Made another call. Spoke for longer. Hung up. He said they had been looking for this car. Brad had been arrested 2 days ago. Out on bail now. Ankle monitor. Passport seized. Facing federal charges. Wire fraud. Selling falsified goods across state lines. The buyer was suing for $8.5 million plus triple damages. Linda was cooperating. Claiming she did not know. Claiming Brad handled everything. Probably true. Linda only cared about spending money, not where it came from. Brad was trying to cut a deal. Claiming the car was authentic when he sold it. claiming someone must have switched it after the sale. Customs was not buying it. Neither was the FBI. The lawyers wanted to see my documentation. I showed them everything. The original purchase documents from the 80s, Dad's letters, the photos, the metallurgy report, the receipts for parts, the timeline showing I had been working on the restoration for 18 months. Marcel examined every page, verified signatures, checked dates, took photos. He said my provenance was stronger than most cars at Pebble Beach. Said I had what collectors dream of, complete chain of custody, original parts, documented history. One of the lawyers asked what I planned to do with the car. I said I planned to finish it, then sell it. He asked if I had considered that Brad might have a claim to it, estate assets, executor disputes. I pointed at the bill of sale again, said Brad sold it to me, legally, with witnesses, notarized. He set the price. I paid it. Transaction completed. The lawyer smiled. Not a happy smile. Professional appreciation. He said Brad was going to have a very bad year. They left an hour later. Rodriguez gave me his card. Said I might need to testify. Said to call if Brad tried to contact me. Said they would be in touch. Marcel shook my hand. Said he would like to see the car when it was finished. Said he would write about it. Said it was the automotive discovery of the decade. The lawyers said nothing. Just got in their SUVs and left. I stood in the empty warehouse, holding Rodriguez's card, looking at the car. 18 months of work. 18 months of not knowing if it would pay off, if the car was real, if anyone would care. Now I knew it was real, and everyone was going to care. Brad showed up 3 hours later. I heard his Tesla before I saw it. That electric whine they make. He parked crooked, half on the sidewalk. Got out fast. Stumbled. He looked worse than before. Hair greasy. Shirt untucked. Ankle monitor visible over his sock. He did not knock. Just tried the door. It was locked. He pounded on it. I opened it. He pushed past me into the warehouse. Looked around wild. Saw the car. Walked toward it like a man in a trance. I stepped in front of him. Put myself between him and the frame. He stopped. Looked at me. His eyes were red. Bloodshot. Pupils too big. He said, "You knew." I did not answer. He said, "You knew the whole time. You set me up. You made me sell you the real car while I sold the fake one." I said, "You built the fake car. You sold the fake car. You signed the paperwork." He said, "I did not know. Dad never told me." I said, "Dad told me." Brad started crying. Not quiet crying. Loud. Messy. The kind of crying men do when everything collapses at once. He said they were going to take everything. The house. The cars. The condo in Miami. Linda's jewelry. His investment accounts. All of it. $8.5 million back to the buyer. Another $10 million in damages. Legal fees. Fines. He said his lawyer told him to declare bankruptcy. Chapter 7. Full liquidation. They would sell everything he owned, and it still would not be enough. He said he could go to prison. 5 years. Maybe 10. Federal charges do not go away. He looked at me, desperate, broken. He said, "Give me the frame. Please. We can switch them. Tell them there was a mistake. The buyer will never know. We are family." I picked up a wrench from the workbench. Heavy one, 2 feet long. Steel, the kind you use for stuck bolts. I did not raise it, just held it, let him see it. I said, "You sold me this car. This is my property. That fake car you sold, that is your crime, not mine." He said, "Jack, please." I said, "Get out." He did not move, just stood there, shaking, looking at the car like it was a lifeboat and he was drowning. I took a step toward him, raised the wrench slightly. He left. I watched through the window as he got in his Tesla, sat there for a long time with his head on the steering wheel, then drove away. I never saw him again. The next year moved fast. I finished the car. Took another 6 months. Paint took the longest. I wanted it perfect, not red. Red was Brad's lie. I painted it gunmetal gray. The original color from the little man's photos. Elegant, understated. The color of smoke and steel. Found the original upholstery pattern in an archive in Italy. Had the seats done by a specialist in Los Angeles. Cost me $10,000. Worth it. Wheels were tricky. The originals were long gone. But I found a set from another GTO that had been parted out in the 70s. Refinished them. Mounted period-correct tires. The engine came together like a puzzle. All the pieces Dad had collected. Carburetors. Distributor. Intake manifold. Everything matched. Everything fit. I fired it up on a Thursday morning in March. The sound was like thunder in the warehouse. That V12 howl. The sound that makes Ferraris worth millions. I let it idle for an hour. Checked for leaks. Adjusted the carbs. Listened to the music. It was perfect. Marcel came by in April. Brought a photographer. Took pictures for his book. Verified everything one more time. Serial numbers. Stampings. Parts. He said it was the most authentic restoration he had seen in 20 years. He asked if I wanted to sell it privately. Said he had buyers lined up, serious collectors, people who would write a check today. I said no. I wanted the world to see it. Wanted Brad to see it. Wanted everyone who ever doubted to see what happens when you respect the work. We were going to Pebble Beach. The auction was in August. Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. The Super Bowl of car shows. Where the rarest cars in the world come to be judged and sold. Where billionaires bid against each other, like it is monopoly money. I trailed the car out to Monterey, stayed in a cheap motel, ate at diners, felt out of place among the people in $1,000 lounge suits and designer sunglasses. But the car belonged. They put her on the lawn with the other Ferraris, under a white tent, surrounded by cars worth $50, $60, $80 million. Mine looked better than all of them. The bidding started at $10 million, went to 12 in 30 seconds, 15 a minute later. The auctioneer's voice was steady, professional, calling out bids like he was reading grocery prices. 20 million. The crowd was silent, watching, waiting. 22 million. The hammer fell. Sold to a collector in Switzerland. Anonymous buyer. Paid in full within 24 hours. Money wired to my account. I watched the numbers appear on my phone. Could not quite believe they were real. $22 million. For a car I bought for $100. I paid my taxes. 40% to the government. Fair enough. Still left me with more money than I knew what to do with. Bought Dad's old garage. The one Brad had been trying to sell. Made an offer the bank could not refuse. Paid cash. Took ownership in September. Spent 2 months cleaning it out. All the junk Brad had left behind. All the memories. Kept some things. Dad's toolbox. His workbench. The sign that used to hang over the door. Threw away everything else. Brad showed up in October. I was inside, reorganizing tools, when I heard knocking. Looked up. Saw him through the window. He looked small. Thin. Hair cut short. Cheap jacket. He did not look like the guy who used to wear slim-fit suits and talk about crypto investments. He knocked again. Gentle. Respectful. I walked to the door, but did not open it. Just stood there, looking at him through the glass. He saw me. Started talking. I could not hear the words, but I could read his lips. Could see what he was asking for. A job. Any job. Sweeping floors. Changing oil. Anything. He was pulling the family card, the sympathy card, the second chance card. I watched him for a minute, studied his face, looked for something. Remorse, maybe, understanding, some sign that he had learned why he was standing on the wrong side of that door. Did not see it, just saw desperation, just saw a man who wanted a rescue he had not earned. I walked over to the wall, hit the button for the rolling shutter. The metal door started coming down. Slow. Steady. The sound echoed in the empty garage. Brad kept talking. Kept knocking. Put his hands on the door as it descended. Not trying to stop it. Just holding on. The door closed. The sound stopped. The garage went quiet. I stood there for a moment in the silence. holding my coffee mug, looking at the space where Brad had been. Did not feel angry, did not feel guilty, did not feel anything, really, just felt certain. There is a difference between fixing things and saving people. I fix things. Cars, engines, problems with clear solutions and right answers. You diagnose the issue. You find the part. You make it work. Simple. People are not like that. People are not carburetors. You cannot rebuild them. Cannot replace their broken pieces with good ones and expect them to run right. Some people are just broken at the core, cracked in ways you cannot weld, worn in ways you cannot repair. Brad was broken because he never learned to respect the work, never understood that shortcuts have consequences, never figured out that authenticity beats flash every single time. He wanted the shortcut, the fast money, the easy win, and when the real thing was sitting in front of him the whole time, he sold it for $100 because he could not see the difference. I do not fix people. I only fix machines. And I am at peace with that. Dad used to say that patience is not about waiting. It is about how you act while you are waiting. He said most people think patience is passive, sitting still, letting time pass. But real patience is active. It is showing up every day, doing the work, trusting the process, knowing that the right outcome takes the right amount of time. He was right. It took 30 years for that car to find its way back to life. 30 years of waiting in the dark, covered in soot and rust and neglect. But the car did not care. It was patient. It waited for someone who would respect what it was, someone who would do the work. And when that person showed up, the car gave back everything it had. That is the deal. You respect the work. The work respects you. You cut corners. The work cuts you down. I still run the garage. Do not need to. Could retire tomorrow and live on the interest. But I like the work. Like the smell of oil and metal. Like the sound of an engine running right. Fixed up the building. New roof. New floors. Proper lighting. Bought equipment I could never afford before. A real alignment rack. A frame jig. A paint booth that would make a body shop jealous. Started taking projects. Not oil changes. Not brake jobs. Real work. Restorations. The kind of cars that matter. The kind that deserve respect. Word got around. People started calling. Collectors. Enthusiasts. People who heard the story and wanted to know if I was the guy who found the little man Ferrari in his dead father's garage. I am. And I found it because I knew what to look for. Because I listened when Dad talked. Because I understood that real value does not come with certificates and auction catalogs. It comes from knowing, from seeing what others miss, from doing the work when no one is watching. Brad works at an airport rental car lot now. Heard it through someone who knew someone. He checks people in, explains insurance options, wipes down Kia Sedonas between rentals. Bankruptcy took everything. The house, the investments, the Miami condo he never got to live in. Linda left him, married a dentist in Scottsdale, posted about it on Instagram. Brad could have gone to prison. The prosecutor wanted 5 years, but his lawyer cut a deal. Full restitution, community service, probation. He paid back the $8.5 million, took everything the family had, sold the estate, sold the cars, sold furniture and art and Linda's jewelry. Still came up short. The buyers settled for what they could get. Said it was not worth chasing someone with nothing left to take. Brad is not in prison, but he is in a cage anyway. The kind made of bad decisions and missed chances. The kind you build yourself one choice at a time until the walls are too high to climb. I do not think about him much. Sometimes I wonder if he understands yet, if he has figured out what he did wrong, if he knows the difference between the car he sold and the car he gave away. Probably not. Some lessons take longer than a lifetime to learn, and some people never learn them at all. I am working on a Shelby Cobra right now. Genuine 427. Owner brought it in on a trailer, said the engine was tired, asked if I could rebuild it. I can. It sits in the center of the shop, blue with white stripes. The kind of car that makes you remember why you fell in love with machines in the first place. I will take my time. Do it right. No shortcuts. No substitutes. That is the only way I know how to work. It is the only way Dad taught me. And it is the only way that matters. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius said that 2,000 years ago. Still true today. Always will be.